Hello and welcome to the Ohio Arts Council's Rife Gallery. This is a Jurors tour of the 2025 Biennial Juried exhibition, and I am here with our esteemed jurors. Please introduce yourself.
I am Charlotte Gordon, the Artistic Director of the Southern Ohio Museum in Portsmouth, Ohio.
I'm Wendy Earle. I'm one of the curators at Akron Art Museum in Akron, Ohio.
And I'm Deidre Hamlar, the Director of the Aminah Robinson Legacy Project at the Columbus Museum of Art in Columbus, Ohio.
So I gave them a really tall task. Well, actually, all of our artists gave them a really tall task. There were just under 2,000 pieces submitted for consideration. So with a juried show, artists will submit artwork to be considered. So we put that call out. We had great response. And you all had to narrow it down to these 61 pieces. So first things first, I bracketed you down so you didn't have to look at all 2,000 of them, but you had a section and then you had to narrow that down to just 50. Tell us a little bit about that process and what you were looking for. What was important?
Well, I look at overall design. I think one thing that we have commented all together is that this is the first time we're seeing the works in person, that we saw them all on our computer screen. And so even though we could look at scale, everything that we do see is on our computer screen. So, so taking all of that into consideration is something really different. And just how surprising it is to really be in the room with all of the artwork now, to see surfaces and color and scale. It's just really a rich experience.
It is, yeah. We also looked for a lot of variety in the works to make sure that we were getting a sampling from artists from all over the state of Ohio. So we really wanted some geographic diversity. And the artists were completely blind to us. We did not know their names, but we wanted some variety in terms of the media. So that's certainly something I looked at. I knew, okay, some of the strengths of the state of Ohio are textiles and glass, so I definitely wanted that represented. But then I was looking at a few other things that surprised me in terms of installation artists, in terms of paintings and the strength of that. So we really aimed for that diversity.
Absolutely. And we also paid a lot of attention to the stories. The stories were so provocative and inviting and engaging, to the point where you could not separate the art from the story in many cases. And I think that lent towards our just understanding of where the artist was coming from, geographically, but also socially, in terms of how we deal with the times we're in now and how the art has been a voice for them in order to speak to some issues that might have been personal or may have been local or universal stories.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought was really lovely is within that intersectionality that you all are talking about, we have really great representation. We have an artist who is hard of hearing. We have a blind artist. We have an artist who's 91. There's just, there's some young artists, some older artists, everything in between, some really established artists and some folks that have just burst out of the gate and doing really great things. So well done, hats off. We should have a look at these works. So we're gonna get started on this wall just over here. Folks, another important thing that we're gonna talk about as we're talking about the works in this exhibition is how do you put an exhibition together and what is the flow that we're seeing? There was some really lovely conversations that came out of the selections they made. There's a color story. There's this object association that like these textures and colors start to come that they're all very qualified to tell you about. So I'm going to get out of the way and let you guys talk about this work.
Yeah. We love this one. Obviously, glass is definitely a strength in Ohio, especially from the Toledo area. This one is so delicate and beautiful. The intricacies of how this artist is doing these different kind of layers and materials like on top and then in the body of it. And we also knew that a lot of these works would need to be under pedestals to protect them. But that was a wonderful thing to consider in getting some of that balance of different materials.
And then the natural materials that we have, the glass, of course, but then the wood. I particularly was struck by the manipulation of the wood and the addition of of definitively different wood types that create this work by Melinda Rosenberg. The branches and the roots were like built into the wood, which is very specific. The coloring is specific. Additions of the coloring on top of the plain surface, and the way the branches create the organic shape. It's just a different take on the art.
Yeah, there's some real craftsmanship in there.
Real craftsmanship in that.
Yeah.
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 And the title wave actually makes a lot of sense. You don't think of waves when you think of wood.
No.
But with this work, it evokes the wave.
And we kept asking ourselves, how did they do that?
Right.
There's some that we still truly have no idea, and that sense of discovery in terms of the process is something that we hope the visitors to this exhibition carry through as well.
Yes.
I'm going to jump in here. This color woodblock print is just a really lovely example of woodblocks, and the color, the multiple colors, the multiple printings that went into this. But it is a very recognizable corner. You know where you're standing in this, which I think is also something very difficult to attain in woodblock prints. The deckled edges of the paper are really beautiful, and just the tonality of this is just a fabulous, the craftsmanship on that is just very, very well done.
Above it, there's a work by Jenna Slessman-Moss. We knew that there was going to be some really strong textile work in this show, but the artists were anonymous to us, so we were I was delighted to see Janice's work in the show. She's a professor at Kent State University, now emeritus, but has taught a whole generation of textile workers all over the state of Ohio, all over this country.
Some really great kind of visual repetition that happens with Cliff Lewis's piece.
Yes.
And, the combination of glass and wood. Exactly. So you go wood, glass, textile, and then combine, and now paper making.
Yes, right. This tokapu, this gold leafing. It feels very ancient, like it's an archaeological relic unearthed, but it's also so contemporary in the composition. This one really jumped out at me in the jurying process, and then seeing it so large in the gallery was wonderful to see.
Tell us a little bit, Wendy, so you spoke...
The tokapus, yes. So this is, each of these represents a particular textile design. So the highest levels of Inca society, the Sopa Incas, each of these would have had their own designs in textiles. And then this is based on a textile at Dumbarton Oaks, which is a great collection of pre-Columbian art in Washington, D.C. And so this is a combination of all of these different designs of individuals put together. And this artist has translated what would have been purely just a woven composition into this gold leafing. And she's making a commentary on, in Inca society, the woven material was the highest value because that utilized the greatest amount of resources of human labor. And they did have some gold and silver, but it wasn't as highly valued for them. The Spanish conquistadors came, and the gold and silver was the only thing they valued. They didn't really care about the labor that went into it. So this artist is kind of making a commentary about labor, about what we value, and then putting it on this handmade paper, which is a very labor-intensive craft as well. So she's really, there's a lot of different layers to this piece. It's very complex and stunning.
Yeah. So that wonderful patterning that we have over there is a really lovely transition into this piece over here by Jessica Wolf. That I'm going to let you all were fawning over these shadows. Go ahead on in there.
Here, I'm going to come over here so you can get the best view of it. We're still trying to figure out exactly how she made this. Obviously, it's fantastic with the shadows and then the movement. You were pointing out some of the individual, the beads on it that you love that touch.
The beading and just the construction of the piece, but certainly the lighting on this and the shadow really makes it come alive. And the difference of the patterning and that certainly it was not accidental. It was all very well thought out by the artist. And this this great floating piece that moves with the air currents.
Yes, and it's so, in its structure, it's very sound, but it's also very light. So you can feel that that dissonance or that tension between something so light, but yet it appears to have such weight in its composition. Also, I just think about it. I mean, it has words embedded with pictures, and I always love art that contributes to both the literary aspect, the narrative aspect, and this has a feel of youthfulness because it's it seems like something from our youth, but also it's very elevated because of the mosaic type of symbolism with the shadows that it puts on the walls.
Yeah, you could really spend a lot of time with it.
Yeah, those shadows really nicely echo what's happening with Hedia's work over here, as well as over to our piece over here by Katrina. So just those visual things that are going to pull a viewer through an exhibition, you'll start to see the connections. So here, there's a real color story for all of these pieces. I would love for you all to just jump in here and highlight some things that you're really excited about these works. Yeah. And maybe talk about your first impression when you came in and saw them together.
Oh my.
Right. Well, this whole grouping is really fabulous. The patterning, the colors, the
textures.
The textures.
They come in, especially with this piece.
Right. So this wall alone tells so much of the story of the entire exhibition. Right here.
And then this piece, it did not, because again, we were looking at photographs, you couldn't really see the texture in it. And when you get close to it and you see that this is such a beautiful, with the color and just the very centeredness of the bird and the butterflies in the middle, and then what is created around it is this abundant floral pattern is just so bright and so beautiful. And to see all of the detail, the handwork in the flowers is just stunning. It's something you really, we saw the composition in the photograph, but it just stands out so much more beautifully.
It's also really fun. This wall really skews perception. Like it makes you think about how you view a piece. So like this piece, it has this kind of, what are those called? When
a kaleidoscope.
Kaleidoscope and mandala. That has those things happening where April's piece bends these things, like it bends the frame in such a beautiful way.
But also it's repeated here with the bending of the frame and the way that the trees are being seen through these prisms.
Yeah.
But this is so stunning to me because of the mix of these materials. Again, this show really shows materiality in a way that was so surprising to us.
Right. I was eager to see this piece in person. We were talking about this earlier, and how well the craftsmanship of blending both the ceramics and the fiber together is done really impeccably with these shapes really echoing each other. It's,
all of these, they reward you with a slow look. Like if you take your time to view these pieces, there's discovery that happens that can't happen if you try and pass it by quickly.
That's right.
And to what you all were talking about, especially with what the artists are thinking about home, about culture, about how they exist in the world, just beautifully represented in each of these.
Absolutely. There's so many versions of landscape and lifescape in these works.
right.
Yes, and then the layers that they can craft, the peeling away that Zach's painting has gotten with, you can tell where he's peeling away different layers of the tape, I believe, to make this composition.
How many paintings are there?
There's so many.
And then maybe Ponce de Leon's is this building up of layers, and we were all so stunned when we walked in and saw it in person, because it is so gorgeously painted. You know, you look at it very closely and it's very abstract. You have to take a step back to see this full composition coming into view. This is great because it's another Peruvian reference, although this artist is Argentinian. And you know, these two across the gallery from each other, you can get a sense like, so this Inca cross you can see in both compositions there. But you know that these artists with their heritage have made their homes in Ohio, and that just speaks to the great diversity of people and especially artists living here and what they can accomplish, thinking about their different landscapes, their different homelands, and bringing that here, how that's translated. It's a really beautiful story.
And the generosity of material in this too.
Yes.
Like you think about that impasto brushstroke and just like, what are we seeing through? How are you layering it? What do you allow us to see versus where do you get that build up? It's just so fun to, you know, there are brush strokes in here that are covered in differently angled brush strokes, so that it's like this clashing that's just so visually rich.
Both the topography, you know, it's a buildup of topography, which I think is a notion that, you know, culture is passed, the nature of culture is passed from generation to generation, but also the land is passed generation to generation, and what happens on top of that land changes from generation to generation. So I think that the topography, the referencing to maps, as well as the cultural symbols in here, it just really works on so many different levels.
And it just takes us on a journey.
It does.
It gives us a journey.
Yeah, and that sense of family history is also a little bit reflected in this piece over here, which the artist's grandmother had done of these pressings for the Cleveland Museum of Natural History that ultimately never made its way into an exhibition, but then the artist's granddaughter, or the granddaughter who is an artist, found these like years later and made these beautiful compositions.
It's also really interesting to see these stamps in time.
Right.
Like to think about, the price of meat. Or it's just a really interesting juxtaposition to, what whole frying chickens were 49 cents.
Yes.
Like, it's wild to imagine that. You know, what was happening then, and also kind of where are we with our papers? Where are we with publications? With how many have shuttered?
And on a practical level, it's a recording of indigenous plants.
Yes,
to
it
Ohio.
absolutely is, yes.
Yeah.
And I love the installation of it. You know, this is so well done, how it wraps around the wall. It's so organic.
Right. It is that record of our plant life, but also our daily life.
Our daily life.
In these leaves of paper. Right.
Isn't that interesting? Leaves of paper.
And we also have a piece in the Flex space by Jumi Chung titled Transit. I know it was really important for us to include this video piece because it speaks to something that is very universal for Ohioans. We don't really have public transit in the way that many large cities do, so folks are very familiar with what it takes to get around, right?
Yes. Yeah. And this is a very hypnotic video. It's not a very long loop, but it can't help but draw you in. And oftentimes video can be hard to get viewers to get out of the main space, to engage with it for a little while. But this artist has done a really great job of creating, a narrative that's still very abstract, but that, allows us to jump right in.
Yeah, and to that point, I think you could stop this video at any point and see an amazing piece of art.
Yes. Yes, each frame is a wonderful composition.
It's beautiful. I mean, and it's something as common as riding in a car becomes this mesmerizing, kind of meditative space.
Yes.
With this interesting color and light juxtaposed to the darkness. It's fascinating.
All right. We'll round the corner here. And, nicely, there's this vertical layout that we have with Lydia's work over here. And then something you all should know is there is one artist that has made it into all of the juried exhibitions put on by the Ohio Arts Council, and that is Mark Ross. So what I love to tell folks about his work is that you have to look at all the sides. You have to get close, you have to go further away, you have to give yourself time with it and think about what does it take to make this work. Because imagining that, like, we can all imagine what it takes to make a line, to paint a strip, but this is on a level that just kind of blows that out of the water. And it vibrates, right?
It does vibrate, and you are rewarded in getting up close. It is a really beautiful piece from a distance. It's a very calming piece, and then you get up on it, and you're just treated to this really amazing surface with these irregularities in it that really pique your interest. It's got a great irregularity to the patterning.
All right, and then we come over here and we'll have a look at Charles Mintz from Cleveland, and he has this series of the Ohio Guide where he goes to the places that the Ohio Guide mentions. Of course, the State Fair being one of them, and if you go to the State Fair, you have to see the butter cow. That is like a prerequisite.
That's true.
And I love that not only is it about the butter cow and having these experiences, but he does such a great job of making it an interesting composition. So you see the butter cow, but you also see the reflection of more people in the background, and there's just something really tender, and it speaks of place and time in a really lovely way. You all chose it.
Well, you're never alone. When you go see the butter cow, which was one of the first things I did in the late 80s when I moved to Ohio, I went to the State Fair, and you have to really jockey your position to see the butter cow, and so you get a sense of that. It is the State Fair. There are a lot of people. It is there, and here's this thing to see, but yet it's obscured by all of the people and the reflections of the people that you're there with.
That's perfect. What's interesting about this work as well is it has a Norman Rockwell feeling to it, with the little girl sort of standing there kind of gazing at the photographer. But what's also interesting is the kind of the ageless, timeless. I'm not sure what year. Oh, this was done in 2023, but it feels older than that. And I think that's a reference back to, and maybe it's the way the color of the imagery is, and it
has a sepia
tone.
Yes.
But I think it might be referencing back to the time when the Writers' Project was going around and making this document, which was 1940.
Yeah.
So it really gives you that feel of the connection between the God and the print.
Yeah, yeah, and it's also really interesting to think about how do artists reference other artists?
Yes.
Because that is artistry to carve those butter cows.
Oh my goodness.
Listen, you have to have some real talent.
That is so true.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, and in the cold, because
In the cold.
Yes.
All right,
Wonderful.
let's round
All
that
right.
corner.
Yeah.
Right, so this is another piece that references that crowd, that summer
Yes.
crowd, the 4th of July on a beach, and where you are just kind of cheek to jowl with everyone else.
Yeah.
But how when you are there on those magical moments, how it is your loved ones that are in focus.
Yes.
That there is the cacophony of other bodies, of other things going on with this beautiful blue backdrop, but here is the next generation that is there, and you're watching them playing in the sand with their pails and shovels, and it's just such a summer 4th of July piece.
Yes. Yeah. And this artist studied dance, and he worked with several dance repertory companies, and this sense of movement, this mastery of how the human body works, I think that comes through in this composition.
I agree. Because you do see the choreography in it. Such like dancers, these individuals are coming together to be one. It's almost like the two children are in the foreground and they stand out as individuals, but the rest of them are sort of like the chorus behind them, where they are all sort of dancing. So you can't see individuals anymore. You see them as a group. And there is some unity at the beach. I mean, you know, you feel that unifying effect of the water, the sand, and of course the holiday.
Yeah.
So it's a very positive image.
Yeah. And then moving on, this very candy-like knife that I think we all said we want to take home. We also want to take a bite out of. It's a very summery piece as well. This knife, which is not a phrase I usually say.
Right, and it's funny how knives we think of as being made of steel, being able to cut things, that they're very strong, but yet it's made out of a very fragile material, although glass itself can cut. So it's a nice juxtaposition of materials versus function of the piece.
Yeah.
And because Michael is a painter as well, you see the painterly qualities in this glass piece. It's balanced so beautifully with the color and the composition of the painting itself.
And the installation is great. It's just a very clean installation of that piece. Yes.
Yeah.
And literally cuts through these beautiful images, which have similar coloration. And it goes from a portrait of two in a group to these very, very strong portraits of women retelling the story of what is
The Odyssey.
The Odyssey.
Yeah. And these women, you know, historically, who were very much, I wouldn't say maligned in the Odyssey, but they were antagonists to our hero getting home, and just obstacles in his story. Now that's been flipped, and they get to tell their own stories. This artist does feminist reimaginings of a lot of different stories, including Greek mythology, and that's something that's so powerful and I think necessary to start recontextualizing. You know, were these sirens really trying to call men to their doom? Or did they have their own agendas? You know, what was their stories? And what else are we missing? Calypso here, you know, who had previously shipwrecked it, now she's creating this beautiful ship. And
in her own image.
Yes, the artist as,
in her own
you know,
image.
women as creators, women as artists in their
love
own right.
Right, and the use of this gold, this gilded gold, you know, the referencing there. They're very strong, really wonderful pieces, thought-provoking pieces.
Yeah, and then they kind of echo off of the gold and some of these other pieces across the gallery too. You can kind of pick up that luminousness.
And so to make sure we get the full color story, coming back around here to Hedia's piece, which, you know, Hedia's piece is this abstraction, but definitely talking about her culture.
Yes.
And what it means to be in a space that, you know, is different, and or, you know, there's this, she's talked about it, the importance of it being very plain when people first see it, to then seeing the color on the other side. And I just love that question that she poses to the viewer of why. Why would you choose to give me something so simple and clean, and then on the other side, this radically bright, like, crush of color that really lovely, you know, compliment.
Right,
Yes.
and the need to conform, the need to hide your color, the need to look like everyone else, even though you have all of this vibrancy inside.
I love that.
Yes, this is an artist who came out of Iran and the Iranian Revolution, and so that's something that's, you know, both personal and societal. You know, these dichotomies of color and
covering.
And covering, yes. Yeah, the title of this piece, Theocracy Harvest, that's so evocative. Like, that can mean so many different things. And, you know, what relevance, I think, you know, this piece was created in 2023, but I think this is something that's going to have continued relevance for many decades.
Absolutely.
Right, and just the fact that these are boat shapes up on end, that, you know, that the traveling that went in, the relocations, how everyone is really moving around the planet, and because they need to hide who they are.
Yeah.
Migration is a human story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alive and well in Ohio.
Yeah. So here we have, you know, some pieces that I feel like this wall
Yes.
tells a really intriguing story. You had a great kind of selection of these black and white or muted pieces. Tell us a little bit about, Deidre, you were passionate.
I really was.
Tell us about it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, people who know me know I love chicken wings. And when I saw this piece, again, it was a photograph that was just a small image on a photo, you know, on my computer screen. And I immediately, now I don't think all of us saw the chicken wing at first.
No.
I did not.
And I said, well, they said, well, what is it? I said, it's a chicken wing. Can't you see that? Of course. And then, of course, the way it's drawn, first of all, it's charcoal and graphite on paper. So it's a drawing, which tells you so much about how much time and effort and detail and it took for the artist to render these lights and darks and shadows and the lines of each image so that you could see what the image is, but also to blur them just enough to make you think it's something else. So this is a chicken wing, and it's inset among dinosaurs. So you see this, they look like little toy dinosaurs of different types, and I'm not a dinosaur. I don't know. My grandson probably could name each and every one of them, but I certainly recognize the hairy chicken wing in the middle. There's a hairy nature to it, which is, someone had mentioned, what did you say about the work that, or did you say it looks like it may have been maybe Xeroxed, or
it has that feeling.
It has that feeling that it has been intentionally copied or
blurred,
intentionally. But the title is The 5 Quadrillion Second Rule. Maybe that has to do with how old dinosaurs are. And then you have a chicken wing set inside of it. And I'm not exactly positive, but I think it refers to the age of the dinosaurs.
And I think dinosaurs evolving into birds.
And evolving into birds. And
There's a mystery to it.
mentioned that.
Right.
You mentioned that.
Right, just that whole evolutionary chain of dinosaurs to birds, and birds really are the last dinosaurs.
Yes, and so, but we eat chicken wings.
Right.
Yep.
It's really playful.
It's so
It is.
playful and yet, you know, again, evocative.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I
there's
love it.
visual
There's
things.
visual dimension,
Like-
the shadows, the lights, the use of light and dark, the composition of it. I just find it rather intriguing.
And it
Yeah.
feeds so
And
well.
this whole wall
These are
together
you know,
is really
very
great.
different
Yeah.
materials. We have
Right.
drawing, we have printmaking, we have textiles here, and this is this is woven on a jacquard loom of these microscopic organisms. I believe they're bacteria, right? Cochlithophores. But made gigantic, and you can really get a sense of that. But you know, the textural quality of this is so beautiful.
Yeah, I recall when you all saw that.
thought
you
it was
were-
a drawing.
You thought it was
We
a drawing.
did,
It reads as a drawing, especially bracketed by these drawings and prints.
Yes, but it is just beautifully
It
constructed.
really is.
To imagine the time.
My goodness.
Yeah.
First of all, the research that went into it before
Yes.
the work was done itself.
And the precision and craftsmanship of the execution of that
Yes.
is really,
It's
edge to edge is
edge
really
to
great.
edge.
Speaking of craftsmanship.
Yes.
This is
My
great.
goodness.
And I love this too. This echoes a lot of the sentiment that we were reading and a lot of the statements about this cultural pass-through that, you know, artists hearkening back and looking at their cultural roots and how that emerges as a visual language for them.
And while this looks like printmaking, it's actually scratchboard,
Right.
which is in some respects even more kind
Labor
of
intensive.
Labor intensive, and there you don't get
And
second chances,
unforgiven.
right? Yeah,
It's unforgiving media.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. And I also really love that there's a break here. I think
Yes.
that, like, you know, many artists might feel limited if it stopped at that,
At
and
the
it
paper
not
stopped, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
just
And this
added
artist,
to it.
yeah,
There was more to the story.
There's
That's
more
right.
to the story.
You get a sense of the individual lives of each and every one of these women.
Absolutely. And I want to know each and every one of them.
Yes. Maybe have
I want
dinner
to
with
be in
them.
on that conversation.
Right.
Yes.
And so this moves on to a more dimensional piece.
Also paper
Yes.
based.
Yeah, with the cardboard.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So having those two, the cut paper and the cardboard that's been molded.
I love this.
Yeah.
Also, there's a color story.
And the
that's
palette,
really
the
good.
palette that
Yeah.
goes on, and just the relationship of this whole wall together. Formality, but also the emotion that it evokes. Yeah.
The thing that I also really enjoy about these works is that everyone has touched cardboard.
Yes.
Right? And so many people will break it down and put it in their recycling,
Right.
but not think about how it might have another life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
especially this movement, this circular and serpentine kind of movement with cardboard. That is really
Right. Well, and the title is an assembled story. And so while we have the narrative of stories going on, we have almost a visual of what those words might look like in space, kind of taking on their own lines.
and then we pop over to Adrian's work, and
love
I
this
love the
Yeah.
callback to folk
Yes.
cut paper.
Yes.
I think most
the
folks are
silhouettes.
familiar with
Absolutely.
like the going to a fair when you were young and having
Yes.
your little profile cut, or
Yes.
if you were lucky.
Right.
There's similar to Lydia's piece up front, where it was the pressed flowers. This gives us a different kind of language,
It
but
certainly does.
same esteem.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's kind of a story going on with all three of these works, and this archival quality to them, where a lot of these artists are sourcing photos from family, friends, and other like kind of distant connections, and assembling them into these new stories. All three of these.
Yeah, and this one, like the removal of a person
Right.
becomes important.
Yes.
Right.
But also having it right next to a piece
Yes,
where
where
it's
there's
the
a
outline.
silhouette.
Yeah, the
Right.
silhouette is the person, whereas the
person.
silhouette here is a removal of a
Right.
person. It's
Right.
interesting.
And these appear as silhouettes as well.
Right. Well, just that
Because of
positive
their
negative quality
That's
of
right.
these, that what is negative is what is positive
Isn't
about
that true?
these. Yeah.
And then that pulls us really naturally over to these works where
Yes.
it's a lot about the verticality of it. Like, so this climbing that happens.
And this
You
construction.
see also in,
Right.
this fall from the skies and climbing here. The
Yes.
geometry too that happens in this
Yes.
area is really lovely. Tell me about these pieces, folks.
Well, I was real surprised to see the layering of this, the collage aspect of these. And I just felt like the design on this was really strong.
Yes.
When we first saw it on a small screen, your eye really flowed throughout the entire piece, but the execution was just really spot on. Yes.
And then the architecture that carries through in all of these is very interesting, because it's not just depictions of architecture, it's this constructed narrative that these artists are playing with. In Lori Kella's, it's she builds these constructions that often have references to her landscape in Northeast Ohio, and then this whole photograph becomes the artwork, even though there's so much sculpture and installation that goes into the compositions. And you can see that as well with Bart's work. The composition and then the layering that's very archaeological as well.
And again, it's the medium, the reinterpretation of this medium. Like, it's paper. We're looking at a lot of paper.
Yes.
But you see it showing up in such different ways. As you mentioned, it's a collage effect here with the sort of the
Shadow box.
shadow box. But if you see the edging, which is paper, it looks like metal. And it gives you that industrial feel that you would think is happening with the it looks like an industrial image, but just with the use of the paper. And then here we have another way of looking at paper, and found paper at that.
Yes.
With the holograph. And then again, this is made of paper as well.
Right, and I'm struck too that we use architecture as our daily markers. Oh, I turn at this house, or I turn at this structure, I turn at this water tower, and that architecture becomes our markers for daily life, you know, where we go, and it's our mapping devices. And so here we have them use that imagery used in very different ways.
I also really appreciate that we had these echoes in John's and Tyler's work. So, you know, the bunny feels like it's falling. We have this guy falling off of the Pegasus, and the angles of John's work and the angles of Lori Kello's work. Just they have just such a lovely marriage there happening.
Right, and Deidre and I walked around. It's worth just really taking your time with John's piece and walking around, and the interior angles that change in that negative space. You know, again, it's that negative space that really charges it around. And this little bunny is really great. We've all felt that. We have all felt that struggle, felt that restraint. Let me go, create what I want to create here, and being bound.
Yeah.
Right.
I recall you all being really confused about the scale of John, because when it's in a small image, it is hard to tell. This is a work that could translate to, you know, 20 feet in the air or larger very easily. So you were concerned.
We wondered, is this an exterior piece for the building? So it almost does read as a maquette for something that could be much, much larger.
And so we have some other really wonderful sculptures here. You know, installation really works. Gideon's stone carving here.
Beautiful. And he imports the stone from Africa, right? Yes.
Right, and the motion that you're able to get, that kind of tilting with stone, with this heavy stone, the contrast of surfaces.
Yes. I do like the matte and the shine, and the piece on his face or her. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's
in motion.
so dynamic.
That exaggeration of hands grasping.
It's wonderful.
We come up to this installation by the artist named C, and it was really important for C to have you be able to see into this kind of crevice. And it's interesting because you hang something up there and it gives you ideas of like, are we talking about clouds? Are we talking about the upside down? I don't know. You know?
That idea cloud, you know, that sometimes can vanish as quickly as they appear. But what surprised me too is how shimmery it is. I wasn't expecting that when we came in, and just the undulation as you walk around the piece.
It's juxtaposed nicely with the birds.
Right. The birds are also shiny.
Yes.
So these are by Megan Reed, and they're, you know, putting birds in the window is lovely.
Yeah, these are two pieces that can't help but interact really strongly with the environment that they're placed in. And so, you know, it's such an exciting way of approaching the art, where you can see it from all these different angles. You can see it from outside the gallery, and hopefully people will come in and be impacted by it, be drawn in by it.
We were intentional in our jurying to have works that might sit on the floor, hang from the ceiling, maybe even extrude from the walls. We were really wanting people to engage bodily with the show, and this helps with that, having things come. And then, of course, things that are familiar and things that are unfamiliar. Things that make you think, things that make you feel comfort was all part of the process.
Yeah, that segues really lovely into these two, which are by different artists, but they have such a strong relationship to each other.
So
you should talk
Charlotte,
about it.
get on in there. Tell us about these.
So I was very drawn to these. You know, we talked about so much of the narratives that we read were cultural, and there's the one thing that I think that we pass culture through generations with is food. And I've heard it say that our genes have memories, but I think our taste buds really have memories. And so traditionally food was women's work, it was the women's culture. I know as a young girl that I sat around the table with my grandmother, my mother, my aunts prior to Thanksgiving, polishing silver and hearing the stories of our ancestors or dishes that were made or the neighbors. And I got this sense as a very young girl that, that as we polished the silver, we were kind of passing from one generation to another, and these are ghosted images on these knives that I think are really great, that those were the people who held the silver that ate off these utensils that passed this generational knowledge of food from one generation to the next. And Rachel Linneman here, that has this, this welded piece, and it was unclear in the slide that we saw, but the silverware is welded into a cake slice shape. And so again, you get this reference of food, but also that food also is sometimes a barrier. With socioeconomic levels, there's you know, who the haves and have-nots, let them eat cake is certainly one reference that comes to mind. So I feel like these together are placed really well together, but they have such a reference to that culture that's being passed.
Let's come around and chat about these works over here.
I do really want to call out this one by Stephen Elbert. This is, I mean, it looks like a photograph, but it's a watercolor painting. It's done in just one color, and watercolor is not a very forgiving medium, and so this is so precise and exact and just so intricately detailed. I mean, if you look at some of the ways he's rendered the glass, it's stunning. You could really get lost in this for quite a while. He's put so much references to some of his other works in this, and then he's, you know, created original compositions within the composition. It really just shows you kind of the you know, the artistic merit, the skill that you have to execute something like this.
The mastery. That's an example of mastery.
Yes.
So we'll come around here, and this area has like a really delightful color story where there's warms on this side and cools on this side. And I particularly enjoy the variety of approaches as well as content in this area. Do you all want to, we can't talk about every piece, but maybe you all want to call out a couple?
Well, I'd like to talk about at least these two and this one also, because it's so beautifully placed here. But when we talked about the stories, the essays that the artists presented when they presented their work, they also were quite vulnerable. I think this time around. I don't know how it's been in the past, but they're so vulnerable to tell us their stories. And this artist, Ricky Deans, really is gentle. If you see the painting itself, is so gentle in this depiction, which after you read, you later find out that his mother is dealing with a terminal illness. And so this is about, and the title of it, The Promise of Peace, I can't help but think that this lovely, well, it's a print, it's a reduction print, he said, which creates, it also is time consuming, takes a lot of layers of the print on top of a print, on top of a print to create the color. But also it's the story that knowing that someone is terminally ill, and then the promise of peace, of course the peace dove at the top, it's that there's something after, and there's a contentment, interesting contentment on the subject's face, which I find it's kind of chilling, but also vulnerable in the part of both the subject as well as the artist to tell that story. And then right below it, we have Owen McCafferty, who is our blind artist, who actually painted, and there's a vulnerability there as well, that we see. I mean, many of us, I'm afraid to paint and I can see everything. So to think that there is an artist who, and it's a beautiful piece, it's got great composition and color, and I would just like to sit at his feet and see how the process is done in person. It just invites you in to know that someone who we consider disabled in ways is very abled in ways, and that's what I see with this piece here.
There's a lot of hope in this.
A lot of hope
Yes.
right there.
Right, and also, you know, that active ill, or not the active illness, but being ill, going through that, watching someone else, and you're really elevated away. There's no background on that. It's really just the image, and in a lot of ways, that's the emotional state. When you're dealing with someone who is terminally ill or very, very sick or going through that healing process in which you get removed from that daily grind and you're really elevated above the cacophony of daily life into this whole other realm of dealing with someone in their final days and how special that is and how, you know, it really is an elevated experience.
It clears the noise,
Yes.
to be sure.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. And this is a beautiful portrait, you know,
Yes,
just
it's beautiful.
of all the portraits that were
It's so
submitted,
evocative.
it is, in which color is used with such emotional power.
Yeah.
And the line, the power of line, the power of color.
Yeah, how the outline happens
Yes.
but stops. Like there's a talent in knowing where to begin and stop. Almost a
Right.
design to it.
Right.
Yes. Even the shadows on the face, just amazing.
It delights me to see color that you don't expect to see and
Right.
skin tone
Yes.
represent skin tone.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's just
Right.
nice,
It
right?
is.
Yeah.
And how all of these abstract color shapes come together to depict somebody very specifically.
Yes.
You know, if he were to walk in,
We
I
would
think
know
we
him.
would know
We would
him.
know him.
Yeah.
We would know
So
him.
Maybe he'll come to the opening.
it's
Yes.
very, very well done.
Yeah.
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 And then we look at the portraits that are portrayed here in this sculpture.
Super whimsical.
Super whimsical and just delightful.
Talk about not colors you expect to see in skin tone.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. I feel like these are characters, but also real people. I mean, I see these children, you know, they appear, I have a whole story about them. Like, I don't even know them, but I feel like I know them. They're sisters, and they're out for a swim, and this one is speaking and this one is quiet, and you know,
Which is the role of the older
which
one,
is the
right?
older one.
Yeah.
I just
yeah.
felt, and then, you know, to know that it's a beautiful material that's so long lasting, you know, it's ceramic, it's to think of what the material has gone through to become this, the shaping of it and the heating of it and all the
How many
things.
times did she
To
paint
color
it
it,
Right.
yes.
to get
The
those
layers and
darks?
layers.
and the teeth and I mean,
Right.
all of it. It's just, I know it's one of yours,
Well,
your favorites.
the reference too of the holes at the bottom are a doll reference. That that is how old porcelain doll heads were made, and then sewn onto, stitched onto the soft bodies.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so you kind of think, okay, what would the bodies have looked like in these as well? So it's kind of fun.
Nice.
Yeah. Let's round it. This area over here, and it like this really
we
does
love the
have
colors
such
in
a
this
color
area.
right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It
I mean,
is.
I wish we
the
could
color
spend time on
story.
every piece, but you know, this
know.
from Craig to Sam, the
Yes.
colors
This whole corner.
and quality
Right.
is just outstanding. But I know that
it is.
Deidre, you're going to want to talk about Dragama's piece.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Dragama Krinjak. This piece is entitled The Day It Rained Amber. And I've looked at it, and I keep getting new things. So while I looked at it before, and it still does what it does for me, this did all of these things for me in the photo. So everything in the photo, it does it for me here, which is, it gives me the piece. It's both meditative and moving. It's like all of the motion, and it feels like things are like around me. It's almost ghost-like in a way, where the imagery exists. She blew it up so we could see it, but there's actual energy in the space. It has the shadows, it has the depth. We talked about the depth. It has, but then the title, The Day It Rained Amber. At first I was seeing it as amber light in the glow of the shadows. But then I see it possibly as amber from fire. I mean, I think of all the fires that took place have taken place on the West Coast, and particularly like the Altadena fires. But I think of fires and what comes up from fire and how the wind blows through that. And I read the artist statement, and the artist statement was very speaking generally about things that are both penetrable and impenetrable, things that are tangible and intangible, perceptible and imperceptible. So there's that esoteric quality about it. But for me, it just brings me a sense of real peace. I love the color story that's going on here, which again is replicated in this corner. It's a lovely piece.
It is.
Yeah. And so those little bits, I want to bring you over to Michael's piece over here.
Yes.
You know, that again, we have that gold that's going through the entirety of the exhibition,
Yes.
but when you look closely, the other piece that I think is really important to note is the just absolute quality craftsmanship that we have across this exhibition. Just stunning, stunning craftsmanship that, no.
There were 3 pieces submitted by this artist. I had such a hard time picking which one. They were all so beautifully rendered, and they're all species of moths that are in Ohio, so that's an important element of the story.
Absolutely.
But I'm so glad that we have at least one. I wish we could have included all 3, honestly.
I know.
This one is particularly gorgeous
Yes.
as well, and especially with the reference, we talked about families and the passing down, and this one particularly is the horn. I believe Julie's grandfather, or
Yeah, I think it was gunpowder
gunpowder
horn.
horn.
Yeah.
But this was in the actual light of the morning that this beautiful photograph, and it looks like a painting.
It does, yeah.
It really
It does
looks
have
like
a
painting.
painterly
It has a
quality to
painterly
it.
quality.
And even the choice of frame, you know, you
Yes.
get that echoing of, you know, it's a vestige of the past.
Right. It's very well done.
Yes.
Even the size of it is appropriate.
It really is. It draws you in.
It draws you in.
It feels very personal.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's something you don't see very often.
No.
Right.
Yeah. So now we're going to come over here and see a little bit of water.
Yes.
Yes.
It is our
yes.
water references here.
There are some
water.
really strong references to the bodies of water of Ohio, especially Lake Erie. You see that in Lori Kellis' work, in Judith Gravo's work. Just it's all over, and it really speaks to kind of the depth, pun intended, of how important our water sources are to everybody in Ohio, but especially our artists.
Yeah.
This is such a beautiful piece. This is, cast glass and bronze, so these are both materials that are going to last for a very, very long time. And the composition references some of the ancient, really geological history of the lake.
Which is
And
stunning.
indigenous history.
And
right,
indigenous
she
history,
mentioned.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
This is going back, millions of years of the history of this region.
Right.
And that's something that's so important and doesn't always get the proper attention it deserves.
Yeah.
So this is, a fairly small piece, but it's got such an impact in the galleries. Yeah.
Right.
And it works so well with this piece by
Right
Marie
with the
Call.
well
Yeah.
and the reflection too, kind of really leads
It looks
well.
like water on the wall.
It
in a
really
way.
does, yeah.
Yeah, but Marty Cobb's painting here is really great. And Kat and I were talking earlier about how small that horizon is.
Yes.
And when you're standing on a beach feeling that water, that's really what
Yes.
your focus is. The waves are really hard to paint, and Marty did a really fabulous job of doing that. And the reflection of the sky in that water as well.
I liked in his statement where he talked about how, and I know this has happened to me, how you go to a shore of an ocean or a lake, and you feel small.
Yeah.
And just how that, in that moment you can see the greatness of what is around you.
Yeah.
And this gives me that feeling.
Yeah, it's really peaceful too.
It's very peaceful.
And what I also love is the way that this ombres up from this warm hue, it echoes
It
in
does.
Leah's
It
piece.
really
There's a
does
really-
echo beautifully with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, these two are really nice bookends together. Yeah, and Leah's piece, Moving with the Skylight, is just such a, there's a lot of movement for a very stationary piece. There's a lot of movement through here. And I love the way these brushstrokes, these whimsical brushstrokes are incorporated into what turns out to be a really tight structure. These are all hand cut, but you end up seeing these very tight, this row houses, trees, landscapes. There's some lotus leaves back further. And you get the historic referencing of cut paper, but yet in this done in a very contemporary visual language.
Yeah, it's super abstract, and there are details in there
Right.
that you
And
can pull out.
narrative.
And then also the presence of an installation requires you to interact with it. So as you walk through, you have these reflections not only on the wall but also on the floor
And this
that
mylar.
give you new experiences that are just lovely. And so then on the flip side, we have this figure in repose, just beautifully painted.
Beautiful.
This is a painter's painter.
This
Yeah.
is,
I think that's easy
yeah.
to say.
You
You
know,
know, and he didn't mention a lot when his artist statement. He just really wanted his painting to speak for itself, and we were so drawn into it. We're like, who is this person? Who's the cat? But I mean, it's really, really well done. But it's also such a mystery too. There's so many questions left unanswered.
Right, and the human form is really, I think, the most difficult to draw because everyone knows what it's supposed to look like. And so if the shoulders off or, you know, the proportion is not right, it's really glaring. But this is really well done. The foot is really well drawn. And then plays kind of outside with, you know, this inside outside. What book is he reading? You know, it's just this,
The reflection that you have there.
Yes.
When, it's something, when you say it's a painter's
painterly.
painting, it absolutely is, because in here you'll see where the artist has intentionally not hyper finished it.
Yes.
They've allowed for the viewer to finish.
With their
These
eye.
little
Yeah.
marks here, if you get close, it's abstract. But from far away, you understand it very clearly. It's some curly hair blending with the background. Also, the relationship of one paint stroke to the next. You can sit there and think about where, because he lets you see that.
Yes.
It's just such a treat.
I love the references outside as well,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, Charlotte, because it does look like it's in Ohio. It reminds me of buildings with
Yes.
those, like cornices in Ohio. And
Right.
Even the detail of something was there. You
Yes.
know, something was definitely there.
Something hung there.
Yeah.
Well,
And maybe this
that
is a smoker's
references
house.
all of- the
Yes.
other gold that we see
Yep.
throughout the gallery
Yes.
as well.
Another
Wallpaper.
tie-in.
Yeah, it really does tie in well together.
And his toenail polish is
Yes.
fabulous.
And the cat's
Just
very-
enough,
That's
yeah.
fabulous. And so that pulls us over to a
Yes.
different way to
Right.
represent a figure.
Absolutely. And this
Another
one's
textile
so-
piece.
Yeah, and it looks whimsical at first until you know the story, because it has to do with our environment and what happens when there's a tragedy.
Yes.
I guess this is representing oil, and this is, it's almost as if she's skiing on water and
Yes.
trying to hold on to the oil. But that took me back to cartoons of the past. It's cartoonish in its nature, and of course, she started with a painting or drawing,
Yes.
and then created the textile. But it is, I think it's stunning with the
It
storytelling.
really is. You know, the train derailment in East Palestine, it's something
Right.
that's so important to to our local history, and it's going to have some reverberations, and so it's very timely as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And as a construction, just to get these areas of color in this way of doing this, you know, it would almost have been easier to paint it, perhaps.
Right.
But the
Sure, it
fact
was
that
much
it's a
easier to paint it,
textile,
but-
so you kind of have this the coverlet, a reference to that coverlet that you know is passed down. That this is this story that we are leaving to the next generation is an environmental one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, super strong.
Yeah.
And so we'll jump across in, you know, similar color story, all that
Yes. Oh my
vibrant color.
goodness.
We have Hollis's piece, and Hollis is another special artist for us who happens to be an elder artist at 91 years old coming in for the biennial. I think you all were struck by the story of the work, but also the incredible detail of
The
that.
incredible detail, the
precision.
composition.
Right.
It's so pristine. It really draws you in, and that's hard to do with this sort of geometric abstraction. You know, some works in this style can be a little bit cold, and you know, so precise that they're, you know, not quite human. But she's really humanized it, and it's just so wonderful.
And so I think the last piece we're going to talk about today is just behind us by Alicia Franz from Dayton. And this is a quilt that is made of lottery tickets. So this is a piece I remember when our jurors were talking about works, this was an automatic yes. One, because, you know, on a screen, in a small image, it still had such a resonance, such a power with the log cabin style. So it has a craftsmanship to it. And then the story behind it is also heartbreaking and powerful and really makes you think. And so to jump in here and interrupt me at any point.
You should jump into it, Deidre.
Well, it immediately struck me when I read the artist's statement about the construction of this work, because Alicia is married to her husband. I think it was her husband's father passed away, and as we do with our elders when they pass, we go and clean their spaces. And her husband's father actually had dementia. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and when they went into the home, they found just thousands, stacks and stacks of lottery tickets. And these are all Ohio lottery tickets. And it turns out that they had so many that it really made her question. Of course, you think about somebody who spent their last dollars, really their retirement, their livelihood, hundreds of thousands of dollars, she said, in buying lottery tickets. But it was also probably as an outgrowth of the dementia. And so the fact that he was doing this over and over in many, many years, it started to, and then to pass away, and then to see all the wealth that was accumulated in this paper. And that she was able to construct this beautiful quilt out of these lottery tickets. There are actually 178 lottery tickets that make up this quilt. Of course, they're paper, they're sewn together with this, machine sewn with this beautiful red thread. And of course, she, as you mentioned, it's in the log cabin style, which to her represents home and hearth. But what the story is that kind of emanates from it is what happens when the inheritance is lost. Not only the inheritance, because of course he lost his ability to speak and probably do a lot of things because of his dementia, but what are you leaving behind? So it's a conversation about what we leave behind as parents, what we leave behind as mothers. What is the inheritance of the next generation? And for this story it stands out for me because of course I have Alzheimer's and dementia in my family, as many people do. It is a more common story than we probably want to admit as we age, in our generations age. It is something to think about. as we think about wealth and the passing of wealth, it's something for all of us to think about. And I think this story is quite evocative.
It's conceptually just astounding too, because it's heartbreaking, but it's also, you don't
So
buy a lottery
common.
ticket
Yeah.
unless you have hope. Right?
That's
You're buying
absolutely
that
right.
with the intention of greatness. So
That's right.
I think this is a perfect place for us to end. It's so conceptually and craftsmanship is strong. It hits all those notes
It
that
does.
you all were so careful in your selections. So thank you so much for joining us on this Jurors tour of the 2025 Biennial Juried exhibition. Big thank you to the governor, the legislature, and to the Ohio Arts Council's board, all who support the Ohio Arts Council, this great space, and of course, Ohio artists.